Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lena and today I'm going to talk about how to budget when you have a variable income. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. On this channel, I talk about problems that are often unique to moms and some of the solutions that I have found to fix them. In today's video, I'm going to start with big ideas and then we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. It would mean so much to me if you hit the like button for the algorithm and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any uploads. Okay, let's get right into the video. So my first tip is to dream big. So what are the things that you wish you could do, the things that you wish that you could buy, and really write those down and be really specific about that. Perhaps you want a travel trailer so that you can go camping. Maybe that's what we're thinking about. Perhaps you want to save for a awesome vacation on the ocean. Perhaps you want to pay off your car or your house even, or your student loans or your credit card. Be super specific about all your goals and write them down and what kind of dollar amount that would take. Sometimes we think things would cost more than they actually do, but if we're really specific about what we want and we actually figure out what it would take to get there, it is a lot less daunting. So dreaming big is also about looking in the future. What do I want to do in the future? What do I want to be doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now? This helps us focus in the now as we are always looking towards our future and thinking about exactly what we aspire to. I think some of the reasons that people end up with lives that they're not 100% happy with is because they never sat down to think about what a life would look like if they were happy with it. So take some time, dream big, write down what you think would be cool. I mean, things change over time and that's totally cool and normal and you can totally adjust, but don't limit yourself by what you can see into the next week. Think long term. My next tip is to plan for the extras. So when you have a variable income, at least for us, sometimes our paychecks range wildly and our side hustles can also range wildly. In my husband's line of work, he gets paid for the jobs he completes. So it's called flat rate time. So if he completes a job in less time than it's rated for, then he gets paid for the full time that it was rated for, but he didn't spend all that time. This enables you to make more money if you can get better at doing the tasks. And in a way this is cool, but it also means that the paychecks can range and sometimes they're $1,000 less and sometimes they're $1,000 more. And if you aren't prepared for that, that is a little bit terrifying. So this tip lines up with the first tip, is you have a plan for what you're going to do when there's extra money because you have those big dreams and you have them written down and you're thinking about them. So it doesn't matter where your extras are going to go, it's that you had decided before you got them. Having a plan for the extras really prevents us from impulse buying when we end up with $500 extra. Because if you don't have a plan and you don't have that long-term goal, well, there you go. And before you know it, that $500 is gone and you can't remember what you spent it on and how it's furthering your goals. Okay, so now you have written down your big dream goals. You've thought about where you want to start throwing your extras. So now it's down to the nitty-gritty of how does that work? My favorite tool right now is these charts that is made by this lady. The website is called Debt Free Charts and I will put the link down below. So here is the one that we're working on right now. So it says big emergency fund and what our saving goal is, and then you divide it up, and then as you do each one you're coloring it in. So this is super useful for us to stay on track. This helps us have a visual for how far we've come and we get so excited about getting to color something in. So we have a specific goal. The goal is to add $10,000 to our emergency fund. And that means there's 100 little squares to color in, which means that each square is $100. So this is the next part that's important, that the increments to your goal are small, and they're small enough for your income. So we had a chart that we were doing, and it was a big goal. And so each little thing to color in was $400. And that was a mistake because it wasn't small enough. So I would make, let's say I made $300. But then I was like, well, it's not enough to color anything in, so I might as well not save it. I'll just spend it. Because the increment was too big, it prevented us from saving faster because we weren't motivated. Because if you have a small enough increment, and maybe for you that the small increment is $200, maybe a small increment is $50, maybe it's $10. So it really depends on your situation, but you've got to have it a small enough increment that every time you're thinking about saving or spending it, you're like, oh, I could color something in. It's worth it. I'll save it. You've got your specific goals, you wrote them down, and now you're making them in small enough chunks so that you can feel accomplished along the way and stay motivated as you go. If you go on debt-free charts, you can see that the charts that are about paying off debt are free. So all the ones, if like credit card debt or medical debt or whatever kind of debt you're paying off, those ones are free. The ones like the ones that we bought, and we have this really cool tree one, those ones, they're very inexpensive. I think we paid like $2 for this one or something. So totally worth it. So if it cost us $2 to help us save 10 grand, that was 100% worth the investment. So my next tip is to budget to the smallest paycheck. So this means that you're keeping track of paychecks and you're noticing them throughout the year, and hopefully they're in general trending up, but it's so up and down with us that it's just hard to get a clear picture of what things are actually doing. I looked at all the paychecks for the last year, and then I looked at what was the smallest paycheck that we got. Then I assumed that paycheck for every single paycheck for the entire year, and if you can live off the smallest paycheck, you could save so much money when you have anything that's bigger than that. So if you don't have enough money to fund the budget that you made, it can be super frustrating and make you really lose steam on your goals. So I like to avoid that at absolutely all costs. So if you can survive off the smallest paycheck, then you are pretty much golden, and then you don't have to deal with that. What do? I don't have enough money. Then I'm gonna have to take out of my savings account, or I'm gonna have to backtrack on my goals or something like that. It also helps you save more money because it means you're always staying on that lower side. Hopefully the overall trend of your income is upwards. So then if you picked a paycheck that was low 2 years ago, you can save so much money because there will be extra money. Like every time you make more money, it'll just be extra money because you planned low. My next tip is to use a whiteboard for random and calculation. When you have a variable income, things are not always pretty, and we need some way to easily keep track of the chaos. So our whiteboard has all sorts of random numbers on it. I will try to link my favorite fridge magnet whiteboard that I have and we use. So we run an Airbnb that's connected to our house. I'll link that video down below. And that brings in income, and it's always different. So no week is the same. So that means we're writing on the whiteboard after we take out like our saving for our taxes or whatever. So then on the whiteboard it says Airbnb plus $120 or whatever. But then you're like, okay, I have $120. What do I do with it? My magical little chart has increments of 100. If you have a tracker that has increments of 100, you could color in one of the squares, and then you could leave that $21 on the board and add it to something else to make another square. Because it's never even numbers. But we don't want those uneven numbers to go by the wayside or end up in our wallet binging on chocolate or whatever your guilty pleasure is. The whiteboard is also a great way to communicate with your spouse about what's going on. So if you had an unexpected expense and your son needed shoes, you just put it on the board, and then you can together decide what to do with that expense later. But it will be recorded, it will be in front of everybody, and it's documented, so we didn't forget about it. So we're using the whiteboard for intermediate expenses and intermediate spots for money to hang out before they get to their final destination. Because perhaps your son needed shoes, you bought the shoes, you wrote it on the board, and then there was some extra money from Airbnb that couldn't be colored into one of the squares on your chart, and you're like, well, we need to pay for the shoes. Let's pay for the shoes with that money. You can do that calculation on the board, even if it's not the whole thing, and then you're ahead and you're calculated. The one major flaw that I see to this whiteboard budgeting method is that there is no record of what happened besides your memory. So as soon as those shoes get paid for by some random fund or whatever, how they got paid for totally disappears from existence. I'm working on fixing that, but I haven't quite done that yet. Let me know down in the comments what your tips are for managing your money when you have a variable income. As always, it would mean so much to me if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.